Recording again. Okay. Uh we ended with whoop, not that one. I'm sorry. Wrong. I have too many screens open. I'm not even sure which one it is. Go find it. Sorry. There it is. Okay. Are you
We still see the Zoom screen.
how do I resume share? Not there. My goodness, this is impossible. Hold on. Okay. Now I know where I am. Okay, so we ended with this screen. Does anyone have any comments about this real quick? We kind of
Yeah,
talked.
sorry. Yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, it's obvious I'm the only one that is as high on the Jets. I think, like I said, I think they can do it. But this one was a difficult one for me to make. Remember last time with the Falcons, I said it was easy for me to choose the Falcons on top. This one was difficult for me because the Bills are so competitive. The Dolphins, I don't expect to finish first. And I think they're a good team. But I just don't see them being better than the Bills or the Jets this year. So that's why I put the Jets first. But it could go either way. I just think the Jets could do it if everyone's healthy.
Um, yeah, I'm not so high on the Dolphins this year, so I had them falling off, falling out of the playoffs in this case. But any comments, Dustin? Or should we move on?
I'm high on Bills and Dolphins and low on the Jets, and that's I'm gonna stand by that.
Okay. All right. So on to the Arizona Cardinals and the NFC West. So Kyler Murray, yes, he's the starting quarterback. He tore his ACL in the last game of last year. uh, So they haven't officially put him on injured reserve because they do expect him to be back, but he's probably not going to be back until late November of this year. Um, that's a long time without your star quarterback. But he is listed as their starting quarterback. As soon as he's back, he's going to be back. Maybe he can make that earlier than normal. But James Conner returns at running back as well. They drafted Michael Wilson out of Stanford in the third round to a big receiver that can help in that department as well, along with Rondell Moore and the veteran Zach Ertz at tight end. Offensive line went through a lot of changes. Uh, Paris Johnson was one of the best offensive tackles in college football last year at Ohio State. He is moving to left guard for the Cardinals because DJ Humphries and Kelvin Beachum are those bookends for the tackle for the Cardinals. They've been there several years in a row. Will Hernandez was their best offensive lineman last year at right guard, and they grabbed Pat Elflein to fill the massive hole left by Rodney Hudson's retirement last year at center. Defensive line went through a lot of additions as well. Carlos Watkins joining from the Cowboys, LJ Collier from the Seahawks. Collier was a former first round pick who is considered a bust essentially now. But Cardinals are hoping that he can refine that. Honestly, both Watkins and Collier, neither one of them started last year much, but they're supposed to start in Arizona. So linebackers, Kaiser White is the biggest addition for the Cardinals. A really good middle linebacker from the Eagles to join Isaiah Simmons, who plays everywhere, Zaven Collins, and rookie BJ Ojulari, who should start at that right outside linebacker spot. Buda Baker is the best player for the Cardinals. He demanded a trade early in this offseason, and the Cardinals kind of worked through that, so he hasn't brought up that issue since. Those corners, Marco Wilson and Antonio Hamilton, that's an issue when you have those two as your starting cornerbacks. Buda Baker is the best player there, but those corners are in trouble. Offensive depth, either Colt McCoy, most likely, or rookie Clayton Tune is going to start while Kyler Murray's out. But you can see Colt McCoy probably doing that. Zach Pascal added in free agency along with Jeff Swaim as well, and a few other players here. Defensive depth, a lot of rookies, a lot of additions, especially in the back seven. Special teams, Matt Hawk is the new punter. The other two remain the same there. An entire coaching change overall. Jonathan Gannon the Eagles defensive coordinator last season, takes over at head coach. And these two coordinators, Drew Petzing and Nick Rallis, the first time ever as coordinators of any type in the NFL, are joining him on his staff. So that's the Cardinals. It's going to be a rough season, I think, but let's turn it over to Cody, I think.
This is a dumpster fire of a team, in my opinion, right now. It just does not look good for them. If they do well, especially without their star quarterback for the first several weeks, then there's got to be a lot of credit given to Jonathan Gannon. Brand new coach coming in. What he was defensive coordinator at? Is that what you said? Okay, defensive. So I mean, I guess we can expect the defense to be better than mediocre, maybe with their players, their roster. But I just, this is a competitive division. I just do not see the Cardinals doing that well in this one. This team just needs a lot more talent, a lot more help. We'll see how the strategy goes with the coaching. Unproven coordinators, it just does not look good for them this year. In such a tough division. If they were in maybe the NFC South, might be a different story, but they're in the NFC West. That's a tough division to be in. So I do not expect them to do well. I would be, I think 6 wins is probably their ceiling, which is sad. But this is just a dumpster fire of a roster right now. We'll see how it goes. That's my take on it.
Yeah, I think these coaching hires that it confuses me. Obviously, none of the team was very good last year, but I thought that the defense was better than the offense. And so then they went out and hired a defensive coordinator to be their coach, focus on defense. And I didn't think that's where they needed to focus. And then bringing in Drew Petzing, who was the Browns quarterback coach, and that should instill absolutely no confidence whatsoever, given that it's the Browns quarterback coach. So I'm a little confused with that. I don't see how this is going to help fix the issues that they've been having. Obviously, they still are retaining some talent on the offensive end, but history proves that hasn't never been enough for this team. They've they've had great offensive talent for 4 or 5 years and only made the playoffs once, losing in the first round. So, yeah, that's all I got to say.
Cody, dumpster fire. Calling this team a dumpster fire is an insult to dumpster fires. This is a mess of a team, and it wouldn't matter if they're in the NFC South. It almost wouldn't matter if they're in the SEC. This team wouldn't be competitive. I just don't. I'm joking about the last part, but anyway, this is the worst team in the NFL. I don't think there's any comparison. I don't think there's any team that's going to be worse than the Cardinals this year. If they win 6 games, I will be impressed. I think it's going to be half that. I think this is a 3-14 team. And especially when your quarterback is going to be out until, game 12 or whatever it is, there's no salvaging this team. And I don't think that any of the coaches, any of the ownership have any illusions to the contrary. I think that they know this is a rebuilding year, that they're going to salvage draft picks. They're going to hopefully get the number 1 pick next year. And what they do with that is going to depend on what happens this year, where they're going. Yeah, this is not a competitive team. And I don't think that anyone in the world, other than maybe the most passionate fan in Phoenix, thinks otherwise.
Real quick, I just want to add to that. I can definitely see this team being, the one with the first overall pick, and this will be something we'll be talking about later on, of course. But it makes me wonder: do you think they'll be replacing Kyler Murray with Caleb Williams? Because that's definitely a possibility. If that happens, I don't know. Just something that we'll definitely talk about later. But that's just a question lingering in my head.
It's a good question. Yeah, we'll see. Any last thoughts about the Cardinals? Okay, moving from a dumpster fire to a regular fire. The Los Angeles Rams. This is a Super Bowl winning team 2 years ago. Since then, they've lost a lot. But Matthew Stafford returns as quarterback. He was really great 2 years ago. He injured his back, I think it was last year, or his shoulder, elbow, or all of the above, or something like that. So he returns to this team. Offensive weapons, Cam Akers, Cooper Kupp was injured a lot of last year. He's really good when healthy. They bring over Demarcus Robinson to fill that slot receiver position. Offensive line is in flux. Steve Avila, I think you just how you pronounce his name, is their first pick in the second round. He will join the team at the left guard position. The other four are so players, honestly. Rob Havenstein was the best at right tackle. Whoops. Kobe Turner is another rookie that's going to play a lot on this defensive line. Aaron Donald, still when he's healthy, is probably the best defensive tackle, maybe the best defensive player in the NFL. He's really good. But you can see what's next to him. He has a lot of nobodies next to him, honestly. Ernest Jones has come a long way, middle linebacker, and they're having another rookie play the outside linebacker position, Byron Young from Tennessee. In the back end, you're replacing Jalen Ramsey with, Kobe Durant and Akella Witherspoon, who's been out of the league a few years. Pittsburgh, he was on the Steelers unit. They do get John Johnson back, who was on the Rams a few years ago. They do bring him back at free safety. Offensive depth, Royce Freeman was signed a couple of weeks ago to help that running game. There's not a lot of other weapons here. We'll get about it in our analysis why here, but Stetson Bennett has won 2 national championships at Georgia. He's a backup quarterback. Defensive depth includes a lot of draft picks. The Rams had the most draft picks of any team in the NFL, and so that's something to look at. Speaking of rookies, special teams has 3 of them, all rookies, replacing all of these special teams positions. 1 draft pick and 2 undrafted free agents here. So, and here you've got your coaching staff. Sean McVay has flirted with retirement the last 2 off seasons, but he returns to this team. Mike LaFleur is a good friend of Sean McVay's, and he will take this offensive coordinator position, trying to put some life into this offense. Over to Dustin on the Los Angeles Rams.
So this is a team that, like, when they're healthy, I think they can be good. I would predict them to finish second in the division. Probably not winning more than 10 games, but still second in the division. And that's kind of on looking at last season with all the injuries that they had to all of their key players. And so if they can stay healthy, looking at this team clean. I mean, if you with Stafford and Cooper Kupp, it's dangerous. That's a couple that can put up 20 touchdowns together. And so I do have high hopes for them. Obviously they have a lot of new and inexperienced pieces, but I still think that this is a team that can win 10 games and finish second in the division.
I think they can do that. I don't think they will. I think the Rams, so they bet everything. They went all in, right? 2 years ago, all chips on the table to win a Super Bowl, and they came out of it with a Super Bowl. And so, I think everyone in Los Angeles says, I would have done the same thing. I'm glad what you did. We won a Super Bowl. Everyone's happy, but it comes with a price, right? When you get 1 year veterans or 1 year contracts on really good veterans like Von Miller and Odell Beckham Jr., who they're going to play for half a season and then they're going to be gone. And then you're selling all of your future, all of the first round picks, selling them down the line. It comes with the price. And this is what they're hitting now. They're hitting a team with a lot of youth that has a lot of development to do. Yes, you still have Matthew Stafford, you still have Cooper Kupp, you still have Cam Akers. I think the team can be competitive, but this is not a Super Bowl contending team anymore, because they went all in on the one season to hopefully do that, and they won it. But the future is now, and it's a real issue now.
Yeah, it makes you wonder how many other teams in the NFL are wanting to adopt the philosophy of one and done kind of idea. It's makes I guess as for me in my mind, if I was an owner or a GM, I would rather try to build a dynasty and then get 5 Super Bowls than just go all in on one, get 1 Super Bowl, and then not be relevant for another 5 years. But the Rams did just that, and so I guess I'm kind of curious what the thinking is. Is it the impatience? They just want a Super Bowl now, and then we'll just deal with the consequences later, or are there still teams that are wanting to just build dynasties like the Chiefs have done, the Patriots did for a while, things like that, and so. I guess it's just interesting, and to me, in my opinion, I don't think it was worth it to do it. I mean, congratulations, they got a Super Bowl, but now it's like you're not really even contending. So in my mind, it was not worth it for them to do that. So this year, as far as this year goes, they'll be better than the Cardinals, that's for sure. But this is still a very competitive division with 2 other teams, I guess, are more competitive ones. But it's just an NFC is competitive. So I don't expect a lot from the team, even if they're all healthy. I think a 7-win season is probably what we'll see. Yeah, that's all I have to say about that, I guess.
I think we have a guest joining us. Dad has jumped on to this call. Dad, do you have anything to say about the Rams in this case?
Well, I think for the first thing on selling their future for a Super Bowl, I think about 20 teams would not only sell their future, but sell their soul for a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, how old is their coach now? He's not even 40, is he?
I don't think
so.
He might be 40, but 30, 38, 39. Yeah. But yeah,
and flirting with retirement the last couple of years. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Although the job does come with a lot of stress. But
yeah.
I think just short of the 10 games, 8 to 10 is a good season.
Yeah. And just to be clear, Sean McVay is not retiring and gonna go live on a beach. He has a studio analyst job waiting for him when he retires, and that's what he's gonna go do. And but he still wants to coach right now, at least publicly. So yeah.
I was gonna say I don't know why he was gonna retire, but it's because in my mind he's a good coach. He can do a lot in this league, but it's whatever he wants to do.
Okay. On to the next team, which is a team one of us, me, is repping here. The San Francisco 49ers. As you recall, they went into the NFC Championship game with this Mr. Irrelevant as their quarterback and came out with no quarterbacks. And lost a non-competitive game in the NFC Championship game because they lost both quarterbacks. Brock Purdy is throwing. He hasn't played in the preseason yet, but he is throwing and is on track to start in week 1. And by all indications, he's going to be the starter in week 1 rather than Trey Lance. But we will get to that in a second. That is a quarterback competition, but everything I'm seeing says that Purdy is the guy to start week 1. Their offensive weapons are excellent across the board. Christian McCaffrey was an All-Pro. George Kittle was an All-Pro. Deebo Samuel has been an All-Pro. He wasn't last year, but he still has that talent. Kyle Juszczyk is one of the best fullbacks and one of the only fullbacks remaining in the league. And Brandon Ayuk was really good as well. That is really good 5 offensive weapons. Offensive line, Trent Williams was an All-Pro at left tackle. The others are kind of up in the air, though, honestly, here. They lost their right tackle, one of the best right tackles in the league, Mike McGlinchey. And so these are the 4 that they're replacing. Jake Brendel was supposed to be a stopgap at center, but he played so well that they gave him the job. And so Aaron Banks looks like a really good left guard coming up. But Trent Williams is the best, and then you have these other four that are trying to be the best. Defensive tackle was an issue because the Eagles ran all over them in that playoff game last year. And so they went and got Javon Hargrave from the Eagles to be that defensive tackle along with Eric Armstead. Nick Bosa, defensive player of the year last year, returning as well alongside Drake Jackson. Their two linebackers, Dre Greenlaw might be the most underrated linebacker in the NFL. He doesn't get the recognition he deserves. Fred Warner is considered the best linebacker in the NFL. And so you have those two there. In the secondary, Charvarius Ward and Diamador Lenoir, say that a few times fast. Talanoa Hufanga was a All-Pro last year as well. Isaiah Oliver is the slot corner that's replacing Jimmy Ward. And so that's a big deal there. Offensive depth, as I mentioned, they have two other quarterbacks, Trey Lance and Sam Darnold, fighting for that quarterback spot. They will both be on the team. Elijah Mitchell, Tyrion Davis-Price. They drafted two tight ends to back up George Kittle. And they grabbed two offensive linemen, Matt Pryor and John Feliciano, in free agency. Defensive depth includes quite a few people as well that have played big minutes. George Odom was an All-Pro on special teams. Jair Brown was their first pick in the third round. He will play a lot of safety on this team. Special teams, they drafted a kicker in the third round. You don't do that very often. But Jake Moody was by leaps and bounds the best kicker in college football last year, and so they're replacing Robbie Gould with him. And their coaching staff, they have to replace their defensive coordinator who is now new head coach of the Houston Texans, and so Steve Wilkes replaces him. And he's been a head coach in the league, as well as Anthony Lynn has been head coach as well, to join Kyle Shanahan. Whose turn is it here?
I don't know.
I think it's actually Dad's. I think Dustin started last time. So, Dad, why don't you start us off with the 49ers?
Wow, they're the favorite for me. I don't have a whole lot to add other than I expect them to be back in that championship game with a quarterback.
Yeah. So obviously I'm trying to set some bias aside, but I think it's pretty objectively true that this is the favorite to not only win the NFC West, but one of the favorites to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl this year. And this is a really, really good team that's returning a lot of great players. Brock Purdy was a revelation at quarterback, and if he can do that again, that's great. That there is still that question: was it a kind of one year wonder, or is he really that quarterback that can lead the 49ers for the next few years? They made some additions to really help. My concern is with that offensive line. That's the one area of concern I have with the Niners. They did add some depth in free agency to help with it, but I think this team is set in a lot of places to do a lot of great things. In the past, it's been the defense that has led the way, and I think they still will, but this offense is set up for a lot of really great things too.
So over to me now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, also trying to set some bias aside. This is a good team. They've been a good team for a while, and Kyle Shanahan has proven to be a good coach. I think that a 12-win season is to be expected at minimum. And so that's a really good team. And to answer your question about Brock Purdy and, him being a revelation, you're not really sure if this was like a, what do you call it, like a one and done, or he just got kind of lucky. I don't think so. And the reason why I don't think that is specifically against the Seahawks last year. They were playing, and I just saw him make some decisions of what to do in the pocket, who to throw to, that were beyond his years and beyond his experience, that were really, really interesting to watch. And he just completely just dissected the Seahawks defense, which to be fair, wasn't really, that great, but he dissected it pretty well. And that was something that proved to me that this isn't just someone who's out here getting lucky. He knows what to do. He knows how to read the defenses. He knows what decision to make. And so with that, I would be surprised if he's not named the starter because of the talent he was able to show right away. First round talent even. And so anyway, so I think he's there to stay and will prove that barring any injuries. I think this team is the favorite to win as well. I think they probably will win it, like without any injuries happening. I don't know if I can say that they're the ones to be representing the Super Bowl per se, but I wouldn't be surprised if they get there. So this is a team that everyone needs to watch out for. This is a team favored to win the division, a good team, and they have a good coach. So there's no reason for them not to execute 12, 13 wins even, as long as everyone's healthy.
So the 49ers looking almost every single position, whether you're running back, tight end, offensive line, defensive line, linebacker, you have one of the best players in the NFL at one of those positions. You're looking at McCaffrey, Kittle, Bosa, Warner, Williams, one of the best players in the NFL at each of the position, and the only position that's missing that is the quarterback position. I think that Trey Lance is going to get the start. They've made an investment in him with that first round draft pick, and they haven't been able to prove him out yet. And I think that they need to follow through with their investment, and that they will. And that Trey Lance will be the starter and will play most of the games, and hopefully he'll be able to play in such a way that can just get the ball to those skill players and allow the skill players to do great things and allow the defense to win games for them. So I bet on Trey Lance, and I'm hoping that the 49ers can do well. I expect them to win the division. I expect them to go deep in the playoffs again. And if they do, I don't think it's going to be because of Trey Lance or Brock Purdy. I think it's going to be because of getting the ball to other people quickly. I don't expect either quarterback to have a fantastic season in any regard, but still be able to get to the playoffs and do well there.
As I said, Brock Purdy hasn't played at all this preseason. Trey Lance played one drive in their first game, and I think he went 6 for 7 for 56 yards and a touchdown. So he played really well in his first drive, and then other guys were playing. Sam Darnold didn't even play. It was another guy. I can't remember who it was, but yeah. So
real quick.
Yeah.
Sorry, real quick. And maybe you want to bring the picture back up of Brock Purdy, but this guy looks like he's a long lost son of Jim and John Harbaugh. If you guys look at him, he looks just like Jim and John Harbaugh. Like he's probably a son of them. So I thought that was funny. I had to point that out.
All right. Well, while I have this up, let me go to the last team today, the Seattle Seahawks. Geno Smith was a revelation last year. He had, I think this is trying to be objective as well. I think it's ridiculous that he was the comeback player of the year, because what did you come back from? The bench? Because he was a bench player for his whole career until last year, and then he was a Pro Bowler. He was excellent. There's no denying that. Although the last 4 games of the season, he was a little off compared to his first 13. And so there's a little bit of that, but he was undeniably excellent at quarterback. Offensive weapons, Kenneth Walker has showed a lot of promise at running back. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and new rookie Jackson Smith and the Jigba make a really good trio of wide receivers. Noah Fant at tight end didn't have a great season last year, but he's the best tight end that they have there in that Russell Wilson trade from last year. Offensive line, the 2 rookie tackles from last year, Charles Cross and Abraham Lucas, were both excellent. They drafted a center, Oluwatimi from Michigan, and he is expected to start at center to begin this season, along with those 2 guards, Damian Lewis and Phil Haynes. They got Draymond Jones at the defensive end position. This is the most expensive addition Seattle has ever paid to play for Seattle, a free agency addition. It was insane. It was like 4 years and $180 million or something crazy like that to play defensive end for the Seahawks. Jaron Reed was brought back as well. He's been with the Seahawks before. He's now back at defensive end. Linebacker, speaking of back to Seattle, Bobby Wagner, 1 year hiatus in LA and returns back to Seattle this year, middle linebacker to join Jordan Brooks in the middle. Uchenna Nwosu and Darrell Taylor at the 2 outside linebacker positions. In the secondary here, Tariq Woolen was another revelation, a rookie. Let me move that. He was a rookie last year, went to the Pro Bowl at corner. Devon Witherspoon was a 5th overall pick, and he's going to start on the other side at corner. Quandre Diggs was another Pro Bowler. Jamal Adams was injured for almost all of last year. He's been injured for most of the last 2 years, actually. But can he return? Julian Love, another addition at safety from the New York Giants. That's a pretty good secondary there. Offensive depth. I just like looking at DJ Dallas's eyes. I think he looks really funny in that picture. But 2 rookie running backs, Zach Charbonnet and Kenny McIntosh, to join that team. Evan Brown was a free agent addition, but he started most of the season in Detroit. But Oluwalewitimi is probably going to start at center instead. Drew Lock, that backup quarterback. Defensive depth. Quite a few rookies here. Derek Hall was our 2nd round pick. He's going to play a lot on the edge as well. Devin Bush started for the Steelers. He's going to be the 3rd middle linebacker in this defense. Special teams, all pro Jason Myers. He may have been the best player for the Seahawks last year at kicker. Chris Stahl is going to be the long snapper. He was an undrafted rookie this year. Pete Carroll in his 14th season. This coaching staff remains the same. Shane Waldron and Clint Hurt at the 2 coordinator spots. So I guess it's my turn to start here for the Seahawks. This is a good team. They were expected to be rebuilding last year and instead went to the playoffs. And so they kind of bypassed that whole rebuild phase. Pretty impressive for them to do. I think the offense is going to be really good. I don't know. Geno Smith is one of those guys that, he had a great year. You kind of think, will he come back to average? Was it just that over average year for a mediocre player for his whole career until last year? There's questions about that. I really like their 3 receivers. I think that's going to be a really good team. And running back, forgot his name all of a sudden, but Kenneth Walker will be really good as well. Defensively, they were less than mediocre last year on the defensive end. I think they've made a lot of changes to try to be better defensively. I think this is a playoff team still. This is a wild card team. They won't leapfrog the 49ers, but it's a good team. Over to Cody.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the addition of Jackson Smith and Jigba. And I will say now, as a disclaimer, I'm going to try to keep as much biases out of this as I can, but you guys catch me if you hear any. But I am really excited about that 3 trio. I think it will be automatically one of the top 5 trio wide receivers in the league, maybe in top 3 trios, behind, of course, the Bengals and Jamar Chase and that thing going on there. I do have the question mark with Geno Smith as well. That was really, really good season for him last year. It's kind of both sides. There's no reason to suggest that he won't repeat that, but there's also no reason to suggest that he will repeat that. And so it's really just kind of a waiting game to see what Geno Smith can do at quarterback. Because if he can't do too well, we don't really have a good backup in Drew Lock. The defense, like I said, a little less than mediocre last year. I think they have a lot of good additions. There's also Uchenna Nwosu, who is a really good sack machine for Seattle last year. I thought their secondary did pretty good with Tariq Woolen, and they got draft picks. So I think their secondary looks good. Jamal Adams, I'm just angry because we spent a lot of money in draft picks on him, and he hasn't done anything for us. So, except for claim that he's the best in the nation and then have a ball hit off his helmet in that game. But so I think this is a playoff team as well. I don't think they will leapfrog the Niners, but I think they will be nipping their heels a lot of the season. So I think that the 49ers need to make sure that they're staying their course, or else the Seahawks could surpass them, depending on what happens with the 49ers. So I do expect them to get to the postseason, and then from that point on is just to see what's going on with injuries and whatnot. But I expect a good season. I expect a lot of that of this team.
Dustin. Yeah, Dustin.
So this is like you said, I think this is all on the receiving core. They have perhaps the best receiving core in the league, and so this is kind of a season where you just bet it all on the receiving core, and do the best you can with it, and hope the defense can hold the line on the other side of the ball. And so it may be a little more air raid than Pete Carroll's has done anything in the past, but we'll see how it goes. But I think that's what they got to do is bet it all on the passing game in order to win games, and it's very possible that they can be really good with that, explosive. So we'll see what happens.
So I was never sold on Geno Smith, and so it was a big surprise last year to me when he did so well. And you would think that would have sold me, but I'm still not sold on him. So I don't see him repeating his first 10 games again this season. And I think it'll come down to the last couple weeks of the season to see if they even make the playoffs.
One more share screen here. I can. Come on. Sorry. We'll figure that out. There we go. In. Okay, here were our picks. Pretty consistent. We all have the 49ers winning. We all have the Cardinals in last. That second spot is pretty consistent, except for Dustin picking the Rams to leapfrog the Seahawks to be in that second spot. But otherwise, this is the same across the board. That's the only change. Dustin, do you want to speak about it? Because you're the only one different.
I expect Rams and Seahawks to have a pretty similar record, probably right around 500, both of them, and just whoever wins that, those games and gets the tiebreaker is going to take that second spot, and I predict the Rams to do it. But no, those are going to be pretty equivalent teams.
Anyone else want to talk about this in the last minute?
I give pushback on that. I just think that the roster for Seattle is much better than the roster for the Rams, and I think that they have just a better chance. But that's just a little bit of pushback from me on that.
Okay. I'm going to stop sharing. That finishes today's NFL preview. We did the AFC East and the NFC West. Next week, we'll flip that. We will do the AFC West and the NFC East, which include both of the Super Bowl participants last year. And so that will be next week, AFC West, NFC East. Okay. Other than that, we'll talk to you next week. Thanks everyone for your comments.